Hello, and welcome to the ShopLogic podcast. This is episode 17, and I am your host, Adrienne. Thank you for returning if you have listened to the ShopLogic podcast before, but if it is your first time joining me today, you might be wondering, what is ShopLogic all about? Well, on this podcast, I discuss all things pertaining to ethical consumerism. Every day we consume, it's unavoidable. We have to eat food, drink fluids, wear clothes, use products like toothpaste, soap, shampoo, clean the home, and everything we consume is either helping or hurting something in some way. Is it an animal? Is it the planet? Is it a worker in the chain supply? Is it you and your own body? Well, let's find out. So get ready to discover some tips, tricks, hacks, and fun facts. And I guarantee you on this podcast, you will learn something you did not know before. Maybe a simple solution to apply to your everyday life. So let's feel great about buying wisely, because after all, shopping should be fun, enjoyable, and exciting. On today's episode, the agenda is mental health. So May happens to be Mental Health Month. I'm going to discuss stress relief products that work and ones that don't, some stress remedies, anti-stress food and drinks, overeating, headache reduction, and substance use. Let's get right into it. Since the theme is about Mental Health Month emphasizing stress, it's essentially a time dedicated to recognizing how stress affects our lives and learning practical ways to manage it. It's about increasing public awareness on causes and cures of stress, promoting mental well-being, and encouraging open conversations about mental health. Chronic stress isn't just feeling overwhelmed, it can seriously impact your health. It's linked to things like anxiety and depression, heart disease, sleep problems, and weakened immune system. Understanding stress helps people recognize early warning signs and take action before it becomes harmful. Since this podcast is all about consumerism, some common causes of stress, and maybe you can relate, can come from work or school pressure, financial worries, relationships, and major life changes like moving, job changes, or loss. A lot of ways to manage stress are not going to involve consumerism at all. It is going to be more lifestyle changes. And here are some simple, effective strategies. Staying active. Exercising reduces stress hormones. Practicing mindfulness, meditation, or deep breathing, talking it out with friends, family, or a therapist, getting enough sleep, aiming for 7 to 9 hours, and setting boundaries, learning to say no when overwhelmed. And some people also explore techniques like yoga, journaling, or spending time in nature. The Awareness Month is a reminder to check in with yourself and build habits that protect your mental and physical health. On to the consumer aspects of stress. You are probably saying, well, just cut to the chase. Tell me about some stress relief products on the market that are effective, and let me know which ones to avoid if they're ineffective or causing harm in some way. Well, stress relief products are everywhere, but their effectiveness varies a lot depending on how they work. It could be psychology, biology versus hype, and how you personally respond to them. So it depends on the person. I'll break this down clearly using some examples that are on the market. What actually makes a stress product quote unquote work? Effective products usually rely on at least one of the following: deep pressure stimulation. In other words, calming the nervous system. Sensory grounding, things like touch, smell, sound. Attention redirection, that would include distraction or mindfulness. Psychological regulation, meaning sleep, breathing, heart rate. Ineffective ones will usually rely on trends or placebo alone. Make overblown claims like it cures anxiety. I don't know about you, but anytime I see the word cure, it really is a red flag. Nothing can really promise to cure an ailment. So that would be an overblown claim. And lack of consistent evidence. Let's get into what we've been waiting for, the most effective stress relief products on the market. Can you guess what the top one is that is ranked the highest effectiveness for many people? Weighted blankets. Why do they work? They use sleep pressure stimulation, which lowers cortisol and increases serotonin, and they improve sleep. not a surprise, which directly reduces stress. They are best for those with anxiety and insomnia and people who like physical comfort. I can relate to that. Downsides could be they might overheat, they can feel too hot, and maybe not ideal for some medical conditions. But the verdict is apparently that weighted blankets are one of the most evidence-supported tools for stress reduction. Do you have a weighted blanket? I do not have a weighted blanket, but I am for sure going to be looking into it. It honestly doesn't sound very ideal right now, considering it is like 80, 90 degrees outside and has been for the last few weeks. It sounds a bit too hot, but definitely come cooler months, the cooler season, a season when temperatures are lower, a weighted blanket sounds absolutely magical. Another product on the market for stress reduction would be aromatherapy diffusers. Now, these are ranked moderately effective. How do they work? Well, certain scents like lavender and bergamot can reduce heart rate and promote relaxation. But the reality is that the effects are mild and it depends on the individual. The oil quality matters a lot. So the verdict here is that they're helpful, but it's not really a standalone solution. I can see how that would be moderately effective. The only time that I have really been exposed to aromatherapy diffusers or essential oils would be at the spa or getting a massage. I personally don't know if I would do this one. It just seems like it might be unnecessary and maybe not work so well. Again, it just depends on the person. The third product on the market to claim to reduce stress would be fidget tools and stress balls. Now, these are situationally effective. They redirect nervous energy through repetitive motion. It is supposed to improve focus in stressful situations, and they are claimed to be best for work stress, ADHD and restlessness in situations like meetings and studying. They are good for moment-to-moment stress, not deep anxiety. The next product, white noise machines and sound therapy. This would be an effective tool for sleep stress. They work by masking distracting noise and creating consistent, calming environments. They are effective as stress is tied to your sleep or lack thereof. The next product would be acupressure mats and sensory pressure tools. The reviews here are mixed and not necessarily promising, but these products are intended to stimulate pressure points, which creates a relaxation response. It works for some, but others might find it uncomfortable. Are there any products that you already own that you have that are really effective for stress reduction that are intended to do just that? I would be really curious to know. Feel free to leave a comment if you have a product or what your favorite product is that you have already that you would leave a great review for that you have found to be the most effective. But again, maybe it's not a product at all. Like I said, it could be a walk out in nature, exercise, a certain food or drink to reduce stress, or an activity, maybe even just sleeping. But back to the material objects on the market. Here are the products that are less effective and overhyped that claim to reduce stress, but really they're just overrated. At the top of the list, we have fidget spinners. These are overhyped. They are a popular trend, but there's little scientific evidence for true anxiety relief. And they're often distracting rather than calming. If you are a school teacher, you can probably relate to that statement. And the verdict here is that fidget spinners are more of a toy than therapeutic. Next, we have these quote-unquote miracle biohacking gadgets. Some examples would be expensive wearables claiming to reset your nervous system. But the reality is some biofeedback devices help, but many are overpriced and have inconsistent results. So be skeptical unless they are clinically validated. The next product that does not work for stress reduction, cheap essential oils or knockoff aromatherapy. Poor quality oils may be diluted or ineffective. Allegedly, quality matters more than the concept. And the next product that does not really work, novelty stress toys and gimmicks. Some examples would be like those slime kits, random gadgets, or viral TikTok tools. The issue here is that it only works for short-term distraction, and there's not really a lasting stress reduction mechanism. They only provide temporary relief at best. I would say anything that goes viral on TikTok is not necessarily going to work. It sounds like it would just be a trend rather than an actual verifiable product that works. So, who knew? The absolute top product on the market, if you're going to buy something with the intention of reducing your stress, is going to be a weighted blanket. And you can forget those novelty toys, fidget spinners, or expensive technology claiming to reduce stress. Those are overhyped and not worth it. The bottom line is the best proven picks would be weighted blankets, sound therapy, simple sensory tools. Some good add-ons might be aromatherapy, but be cautious with the trendy gadgets, anything claiming dramatic results. The most effective stress products will not eliminate your stress. Instead, they help regulate your body or attention in simple, repeatable ways. If you're trying to manage stress and stay aligned with ethical, sustainable values, the good news is that there are plenty of remedies that support both your well-being and the planet. Here is a thoughtful guide to stress relief through an ethical consumer lens. You might be most interested in low-impact, high-effect natural practices. These are the most ethical options. There's no supply chains, no waste, just your time and attention. Mindfulness and meditation, I can definitely testify to that. It is backed by research in psychology, and these are practices that reduce cortisol and improve emotional regulation. There are apps that you can download to offer free content without pushing consumerism. But what I like to do most of all is go to an actual meditation center. That way you are there in person, you get out of the house, you're around other people, and it's usually free of cost, or often they request a small donation. And you don't really need to bring anything. You might just want to bring a blanket if you tend to get cold, or a pillow if you want extra support while you are meditating. And in terms of consumerism, I would only really suggest books, which you could always check out at the library. I like audiobooks or ebooks from the library on meditation and mindfulness information. Breathing exercises are another great solution. There are techniques like box breathing or 4-7-8, which activates the parasympathetic nervous system, no materials required. And nature exposure, some green time, walking in parks or forests lowers stress hormones. This connects to the idea of biophilia hypothesis. Some more ethical products for stress relief. If you do want to buy something, absolutely focus on transparency, sustainability, and fair labor. Herbal teas, look for fair trade brands using ingredients like chamomile or ashwagandha. These support relaxation without synthetic additives. And essential oils, as I mentioned, lavender and bergamot are popular, but choose brands that disclose sourcing and avoid over-harvesting, which is a real issue in the aromatherapy supply chains. And weighted blankets, again, these can reduce anxiety symptoms. Just make sure to check for ethical manufacturing and sustainable fillings like organic cotton instead of polyester. There are some cognitive and lifestyle approaches to stress reduction, which would include digital minimalism, reducing your exposure to constant notifications from apps, which can significantly lower stress and comparison anxiety. Journaling. You can use some recycled paper, notebooks, or digital journaling apps to reflect and process stress. For me, I just use the Notes app that already comes on a smartphone. I don't necessarily journal, but if I do feel stressed out, I like to make lists, not even necessarily to-do lists, although that can be very therapeutic if you're feeling overwhelmed with tasks and chores that you need to get done. But even just making a list of what is on your mind in short, quick, simple terms. It doesn't have to be a novel. It doesn't even have to sound good. You can always delete it and no one will see it. And sleep hygiene. Consistent routines can dramatically improve resilience to stress. There's also community-based and ethical wellness. Things like mutual aid and volunteering. Helping others actually reduces stress, and you can build social connection. And you could support some small wellness practitioners that are local ethical businesses in your area. Could be yoga teachers, therapists, massage centers, spas, anything self-care or wellness. But you want to watch out for the following. There are a lot of greenwashed wellness products on the market. Some brands market natural or eco stress remedies without any certifications or proof. It is amazing what they can get away with by stating claims on labels. They use buzzwords like natural and eco and use colors like green and brown and earth tones to convey and depict this idea that something is holistic, ethical. It's all about that marketing psychology. But when in reality, if it's greenwashing, they use these tricks and these tactics to convince the consumer to buy them, that they're better than the other product from the other brand on the shelf next to them. But maybe there is no actual proof in the pudding. So that is what greenwashing is. It comes up again and again on this podcast because there are a lot of clever ways that brands use to get consumers to fall for something when maybe that product does not work at all. Ironically enough, overconsumption, so buying too many wellness products, can actually add to your stress financially and in terms of clutter. I always emphasize minimalism, which is kind of a paradox of this podcast because it is about shopping, but it's true, less is more. So if you buy less, but better quality and things that you actually need, it creates an overall better space and environment physically and mentally. Here is a simple ethical stress relief formula. Start with free, low-impact practices like breathing, nature, exercise, and mindfulness. Add those ethically sourced tools and products if needed, and stay mindful of your consumption habits and those marketing claims. These brands are aware that everyone is stressed out in life, and so unfortunately, they might be taking advantage. They might be promising a solution that doesn't even work. They might lure you in with false claims and promises for cures, but it's great to read reviews to know what the consumer actually thinks, if the product really works, and just using some common sense and doing your research before you spend too much money on something you think is going to help you when it doesn't do much at all. Let's move on to one of my favorite topics, food and drink. Yes, there are tons of anti-stress foods and drinks out there. Stress and food are tightly linked. What you eat and drink can either calm your nervous system or make your stress worse. Here is clear practical insight to anti-stress foods and drinks and how they can actually help. First, let's ask, why would food affect stress? Stress is driven by hormones like cortisol. Certain nutrients help regulate your brain chemicals like serotonin and dopamine. They reduce inflammation and stabilize blood sugar, all of which can calm your body. Some anti-stress foods. First up would be magnesium-rich foods. These are the natural relaxers. Magnesium helps regulate the nervous system and reduce anxiety. Some magnesium-rich foods would be spinach and kale, avocados, almonds and cashews, and dark chocolate if it's 70% or more of cocoa. Low magnesium is linked to higher stress levels. Next, we would have omega-3 fatty acids. These are the brain calmers. They support brain health and reduce inflammation. Unfortunately, we have foods like salmon and sardines, which I would not recommend because, as you know, I am vegan, and part of this podcast is promoting things that are going to help animals, not kill them or hurt them. So I would scratch that one out. Although salmon and sardines surely do have omega-3 fatty acids in them, you do not want the other side effects that come with it, the mercury and the other toxins, since sadly the oceans are quite polluted nowadays, but also the animal welfare. You might be supporting factory farming, which, yes, even extends over to fish as well. That is a different episode for a different time, but back to omega-3 fatty acids, there are plenty of plant-based foods to eat instead that would include walnuts, chia seeds, and flax seeds. And the great thing about chia seeds and flax seeds, you can sprinkle them on your cereal, oatmeal, granola, or blend them up into a smoothie, or even put them on salad or mix it in with your salad dressing, because they don't taste like anything. Chia seeds are packed with protein. The same goes for flax seeds, but definitely chia seeds. It's amazing what such a small little seed can do, and you only need about a tablespoon or a teaspoon per day, and wow, what a difference that's actually going to make. Consume these regularly, and that will be associated with lower anxiety. Next, we have complex carbs. These are the mood stabilizers. These foods boost your serotonin, your feel-good chemical. Oats, brown rice, quinoa, and sweet potatoes. Unlike sugar, they are not going to cause any energy crashes. Then we have protein-rich foods. These are going to give you steady energy and help maintain stable blood sugar and focus. Well, apparently, eggs, Greek yogurt, and chicken are all protein-rich. And yes, that is true. However, again, we do not want to be supporting animal exploitation, factory farming, and all of the issues with animal welfare that goes into that. Also, eggs are going to come with high cholesterol, and any animal product will have cholesterol. Plant-based products do not have cholesterol. And with animal products like eggs, Greek yogurt, chicken, you're also going to be consuming hormones. Every animal has hormones, and so do their byproducts. So that is a negative side effect of animal products, as well as the likelihood of antibiotics and steroids that are used on livestock. So instead, protein-rich foods that are plant-based are going to be tofu, beans, and lentils. Yet again, we do not need animal products to fulfill the anti-stress food and drink list. Then, some of my favorites. Fermented foods. This is going to be great for your gut. There is a gut mood connection because your gut directly affects your brain. Again, you're going to have yogurt, but what I have discovered is they make some pretty good vegan yogurt nowadays that also contains those probiotics and fermentation. It's a little hard to find, but it does exist. But also kimchi, which I love, and thankfully now they make it without fish. So if you can find it, a lot of brands will disclose that their kimchi is vegan. You could look at the ingredient list. There's usually not a lot of ingredients. The main ingredient would be cabbage, spices, and salt, but just make sure that it doesn't contain fish oil or any seafood ingredient. So yes, vegan kimchi is a thing on the market. It is delicious. Sauerkraut, another favorite of mine. And there's a product called kefir, which is similar to yogurt, but again, I wouldn't really do kefir because it comes from an animal. It's not vegan. Some other fermented foods might be authentic sourdough and tempeh. Tempeh is a great one because that is fermented soybeans. A lot of people don't know what that is, but it is a staple in the vegan community, very high in protein and fermented. A healthy gut can reduce anxiety symptoms. Fruits high in vitamin C. Believe it or not, they will not just prevent you from getting sick. Fruits high in vitamin C will also lower cortisol levels. These would be fruits like oranges, strawberries, blueberries, and kiwis. Just be sure to buy them organic because you cannot wash off pesticides. And dark chocolate gets a special mention because it contains antioxidants, which may reduce stress hormones. Dark chocolate can improve your mood in moderation. The thing you need to watch out for with chocolate, you want to be sure it's fair trade. Chocolate is a product, cocoa rather, the ingredient, the main ingredient, is highly associated with worker exploitation. So just make sure that dark chocolate is fair trade. Also, that it doesn't contain milk because they keep putting milk and too much sugar in all of these chocolate products. So if you can find vegan dark chocolate that is fair trade, ideally organic, that would be the best combo. Anti-stress drinks. Herbal teas is at the top of the list. No surprise there. They are natural calmers, and here are the best herbal teas for stress. Chamomile, which promotes relaxation and sleep. Peppermint is going to soothe tension, and lavender tea will reduce anxiety. Green tea. Green tea specifically contains L-theanine, which promotes calm focus, and it reduces jitterness even with caffeine. Because on the spectrum of caffeine in the tea grouping, green tea does not have quite that much. Black tea is going to be the most potent in caffeine, which is why things like green tea or even matcha are going to not necessarily give you the jitters. Just be sure, even with green tea, to not drink it on an empty stomach, especially if it has caffeine. And you could even find green tea that is decaffeinated. Water, it is simple and seems obvious, but it is very powerful because dehydration can increase your cortisol levels. Even mild dehydration can worsen your stress. And golden milk. I had never heard of this before. Maybe this is a new one for you too. It's essentially a turmeric drink. So it doesn't have to be cow's milk. It can be soy milk, oat milk, almond milk, whatever you normally consume. I prefer soy because it is higher in protein. And organic soy milk is actually pretty affordable. If you mix the plant-based milk with turmeric, the spice, it's going to be an anti-inflammatory and it may support mood and brain health. Some people might even warm it up or drink it a little more hot, but it could also be cold as well or room temperature. Here are some foods and drinks to avoid because they are going to increase your stress. So these would be ones you want to absolutely limit. Caffeine. If you have too much, it's going to create anxiety and poor sleep. How many mornings or times throughout the day have you thought, oh, if I just have a little pick-me-up, I just want one more cup of coffee, a small cup, and then it sends you right over the edge and it's too much, you become nauseous, you get the jitters, and you feel anxiety, and lo and behold, many hours later, that evening, you cannot sleep, you've got insomnia. That happens to me a little too often, so I have to limit myself. I've created a personal rule to not consume caffeine after 12. I know it makes me sound old or very sensitive. I've had to learn my lesson the hard way because I won't be able to sleep well, and I really like it when I can fall asleep within just a few minutes, get a good night's rest. So definitely be sure to limit your caffeine. You could even work on reducing your tolerance so that when you do consume caffeine, you only need 1 cup instead of multiple cups of caffeine. You also want to limit alcohol because it's going to disrupt your mood and your sleep. Avoid sugary snacks. Those will cause crashes in energy. And avoid highly processed foods. Quick anti-stress eating tips. So this is more behavioral. You want to eat regularly so you avoid blood sugar dips. You don't want to get to the point where you feel lightheaded and dizzy. You want to have food ready. A little bit of food prep or having some healthy snacks on hand is going to be advisable. And combine protein and carbs. This is going to give you a steady energy. Be sure to stay hydrated and try not to skip meals during stressful days. So we've already learned which foods and drinks to eat that will help reduce your stress and ones to avoid that will increase your stress. What about overeating? So eating too much, because stress-related overeating is very common. It's not just about lack of willpower. It can be tied to biology, psychology, and environment. And those same forces can be redirected in healthier ways. When you're stressed, your body activates a fight or flight response, releasing hormones like cortisol. Cortisol will increase your appetite, especially for high-fat, high-sugar foods. These foods stimulate dopamine, giving short-term relief. Over time, this creates a habit loop. Stress will turn into cravings, will turn into eating, and only provide temporary relief. There's also emotional regulation at play. Food becomes a quick coping tool when you're overwhelmed, bored, or anxious. Here are some signs that you're doing it. If you're eating when you're not physically hungry, craving specific comfort foods, feeling a bit out of control while eating, and feeling guilt or regret afterwards. Solutions would be interrupting the stress food loop. Instead of turning to food right away, try 5-minute resets like breathing, walking, stretching. You can be journaling what you're feeling before you eat, and replace the reward with something that's not food. This could be music, a shower, a quick phone call, even a game on an app on your phone. These techniques reduce reliance on dopamine spikes from food. Build intentional eating habits. Eat regularly and balanced meals to prevent extreme hunger. Include protein and fiber to stabilize your blood sugar, and practice mindful eating. So, slowing down, smaller portions, and removing distractions. What comes to mind when I think of distractions would be when people eat as they watch television or a show or their favorite series on a streaming platform. If you create that connection each time you go to watch your show on Netflix or Hulu, then you're going to want to turn to that snack. So breaking the association is going to help as well. You can create a better environment in the event that you do want to snack on something. If you're feeling stressed and just cannot control it, you can make the choice a better choice, keeping healthier snacks accessible. And avoid stocking large quantities of your trigger foods. Having some pre-cut fruits or vegetables on hand in the fridge is a great solution. With high stress, what tends to occur most? Headaches. So let's discuss some headache reduction and ways to relieve headaches safely and effectively, and making sure that your choices align with your values like sustainability, fair labor, transparency, and veganism. Let's first understand where headaches come from. You might have tension headaches, which can be rooted in stress, posture, and screen time. Migraines, which can be neurological, and even food or light can trigger them. Dehydration or caffeine-related headaches. That's why it's great to be mindful of your caffeine intake and reduce it and maintain proper hydration. Low-impact non-drug approaches are the best first step. Hydration and nutrition, drinking water, maintaining steady blood sugar. Then stress reduction, generally speaking, techniques like breathing exercises, meditation, yoga, even short breaks from screens can reduce tension headaches. Physical adjustments, ergonomic workspace setup, and stretching your neck and shoulders. There are a lot of great YouTube tutorials specifically for neck stretches that I recommend. Natural remedies with some evidence would include peppermint oil, topical application, and if you dilute it, magnesium comes up again. Magnesium supplements would be great for migraine prevention, and a cold or warm compress. But if you do need medicine, and sometimes that is essential, personally, I have to take medicine for migraine prevention because sometimes meds are necessary, and that's okay. The goal is responsible use. Some common options if you get migraines or headaches from time to time might be things like ibuprofen, aspirin. You could buy generics. It really has the same effectiveness and less branding waste, and it's going to be lower cost. You can look for companies with transparent supply chains and avoid overuse, which can cause rebound headaches and environmental contamination via wastewater. So in terms of medicine, and this is also going to be another podcast episode for a later time, but a lot of medicines have been tested on animals, and sometimes there is no way around that. If you've ever been in the pharmaceutical section at a Walgreens or a CVS, you will know what I'm talking about. If you are like me and like to read the full label on the packaging, it is almost impossible to find something as strong as like aspirin or ibuprofen where it's going to say not tested on animals, because sadly, a lot of medicines are still tested on animals to see the side effects, to see the effectiveness, to do studies. That's unfortunately a component of the pharmaceutical industry. But again, I say this almost every episode, it is not about perfection, it is about progress. So every single thing you have can be not tested on animals, and then if you are having a headache and suffering and need to buy medicine, sometimes you have to make exceptions. And if it doesn't disclose that it's not tested on animals, you can assume it probably was tested on animals, and you might just have to buy it because you need to take care of your own health. If you find a product that can work for your illness and it says not tested on animals, then absolutely, by all means, that's the better ethical choice. But I have yet to encounter such a thing when it comes to headache reduction with medicine. When it comes to other products, maybe there are some holistic products on the market that will help reduce headaches. You're going to want to look for minimal packaging that's recyclable or compostable, cruelty-free certifications, responsible sourcing of ingredients, B Corp or similar certifications. And I like to choose whichever product is packaged in less plastic, or plastic-free would be ideal. Avoid over relying on those painkillers. Those can worsen your headaches long term. Avoid falling for miracle cures without evidence. And don't ignore your chronic headaches that could indicate underlying issues. And last but not least, we will briefly touch down on the topic of substance use when it comes to dealing with stress and why it matters to the ethical consumer. Substance use is driven by stress and is a really important issue for Mental Health Awareness Month, not just for personal health, but also for how we think about ethics, how they market products to us, or substances rather, and the responsibility as consumers. When people experience chronic stress, which can come from things like financial pressure, job insecurity, trauma, and social isolation, they sometimes turn to substances like alcohol, nicotine, or drugs as a coping mechanism. This is closely linked to substance use disorders, which is essentially repeated use, and it becomes harder and harder to control and creates negative consequences. Stress affects your brain chemistry with cortisol and dopamine levels, making short-term relief from substances feel powerful, even if it worsens them in the long term. But here is something to consider. Companies can profit from your stress. Industries tied to alcohol, tobacco, and even pharmaceuticals market products in ways that subtly or even overtly appeal to stress relief. They might say things like, relax after a long, hard day, or take the edge off with insert product here. This can normalize reliance on substance instead of addressing the root cause, like burnout or other related issues. Vulnerable populations are often targeted. Communities under higher stress, like due to poverty, discrimination, or unstable work, are often more heavily marketed to. Do you pay attention to who they cast in specific advertising and what types of people, whether it's age, race, gender, etc., or what type of scenarios they're in? Maybe there are people who are having stress at work and it's like a cubicle office situation. Yeah, they are very clever with their marketing techniques. So pay attention to the marketing. And this is going to raise ethical concerns about exploitation rather than informed choice. There are public health consequences. Stress-driven substance use contributes to addiction and mental health issues, healthcare strain, and lost productivity and social harm. If you're trying to consume ethically, if you're listening to this podcast, that would be you, this issue intersects with several principles, like conscious spending. Ask yourself, is this product being marketed as an emotional escape? Does the company rely on habitual or addictive consumption? And corporate accountability. Ethical consumers can often evaluate marketing practices like, are they being manipulative? Transparency about risks. Are they being transparent about risks and side effects? Are they actually investing in harm reduction or community support, or just in it for profit? And you can use broader impact thinking. Your purchase choices can support or discourage industries that profit from dependency. The big picture is stress-driven substance use sits at the intersection of mental health, economics, corporate ethics, and social justice. All in all, to summarize this episode, as an ethical consumer, it's not just asking, should I buy this product? It also becomes, what systems am I supporting? Who benefits and who is harmed? And are there better alternatives that promote well-being instead of dependency? Well, I hope you learned a lot from this episode. I know I actually did, from gathering information for my content on the theme of mental health and stress reduction. I hope you take the tips and tricks and insight from this podcast episode and apply them to your everyday life. Be sure to follow this podcast to check out the next episode. I'm your host, Adrienne. Thank you for listening. Bye.